I did. I got too busy with doing what I'm doing here, which is, I don't know.
I'm glad you put that in there, because I was about ready to.
All righty, folks. Well, welcome to the 11 o'clock session, which is originally supposed to be about Cowboy Poets of Idaho, the organization that I'm on the board of directors of, but at the same time, I've got some people here that you've just got to be exposed to. And I think first on, well, I'm going to do this poem right here because it's kind of an introductory to our first poet. This is something I wrote 6 months ago after I heard this young man at the Antelope Island gathering. At a time when family ranches are fading to the past, and the kids move to the city and are taught to not look back, with their faces stuck in cell phone screens and hubcaps in their ears, and vegans telling what to eat, and teachers filled with fear of a child learning how to shoot or taught to throw a calf, it's such a breath of fresh air just to hear a kid like Thatch. This young man's years don't count to much, but his eyes are 55. He handles pen and paper as well as he can twirl twine. He knows the value of the land and how to keep it green. And the freedom of the cowboy life is more. It's just what the world needs. He's every bit as much as home on stage as on the range. For when he starts reciting, you plumb forget his age. He raises up that microphone and speaks straight to your heart. His words come through with images that never will depart, of clean and honest living and a closeness to the land, or what the world needs right now, and it's slipping from our hands. I can't help thinking that the Lord could see the cowboy's plight and send an angel down this way to lead us to his light. With Thatch, the West has found new hope, a nugget in a stream. Let the future of the family ranch be more than just a dream. That's Elmer.
Well, I'd first of all like to thank Wayne for that poem, and it was one morning one day, and Wayne had put that poem on Facebook, and I was sitting on my couch, and I ran upstairs to my mom and dad's room, and I said, "Hey, look at this," and they read this, and that poem, and, well, thank you. This first poem I'll do is one that was written by a good friend of mine named Baxter Black, and he wrote this poem, and, I can kind of relate to this one. It's called, "Are You a Cowboy?" When they ask, "Are you a cowboy?" I try to consider the source. Is it someone who thinks I'm slush and's trying to sell me a horse? Or the downtown type in tennis shoes, who's skeptical but courteous and never smelled one of our kind up close and's only curious? You see, the first guy really wants to know, are you any good around stock? Can you help a cabby heifer? Can you dally a double hawk? Do you know how to use a Bose elk in your mouth and read a brand? He never says it straight out loud, but he's asking, are you a hand? The other guy, who's just as nice, don't know a tit from a waddle. And when he asks, are you for reals? Well, I just quote the Greek Aristotle, who might have answered, had he lived, son, don't count on being lucky. To find out if he lives with cows, examine his boots for pucky. I like to think I'm good around cows and a pretty fair hound with a horse, but am I a surefire cowboy? I'm dodging the answer, of course. I've learned the hound of the question, whichever one wants to know it. I ante up and say that I'm a better cowboy poet. Thank you. I'll do this other one for you. It's a classic poem. written by a guy named Elmer Barber, and I've been invited to Elkhorn, Nevada to be a performer this year, and they're doing a tribute session to the poems of Elmer Barber, and they've asked me to do this one and another one, but I've not got that other one quite finished yet, so I'm working on it. But here's this one. It's called Curly Wolf College. I went up to this college and they asked me what I knowed to justify embarking upon the education road. Well, I told them that my ma and pa had figured I was smart, for I could always pert near tell a horse and cow apart. The cow's the one that wears the horns, and the horse the one you ride, and most of them most always wears the hairy part outside. They asked me what I knowed about the history of the earth. Well, I told them that I understood it started in Fort Worth, where Adam the first Texan found a market for his steers and started raising buckaroos with red and hairy ears. They asked about my algebra. I told them it was tough, the way most any cowboys gets, who's riding long enough. They asked me what philosophy of life I favored most, and that one sure did snub me, right up to the snubbing post. Well, I pondered some and told them that I always do my best, aim my spitting eastwards when the wind is in the west. They asked about my grandma. I told them she was dead. They didn't mention Grandpa, but I told them what he'd said, that any man was foolish and surely bound to fail who'd kick a hog barefooted or twist a panther's tail. Well, I went up to this college, but I didn't stay there long, for they asked a heap of questions, and my answers was all wrong. At least that's what they figured, like them college fellas do. But I brought back a professor just to spend a week or two, riding on the rancho with a hoss between his knees, where the wolves are wild and curly and the coyotes all got fleas. And about this here professor, wouldn't say no word unkind, for he packs a heap of knowledge in that thing he calls a mind. But now my lack of learning don't seem no near we be gone. At least I know which end to put the horse's bridle on. Thank you.
Great job, Thatch Elmer. Got a great future in cowboy poetry. And, him and Kristyn Harris are both shining examples of, it gives the West new hope. It really does. The fact that the rangeland is being gobbled up by everything from developers to environmentalists. What I'm holding in my hand here is the forerunner of all stringed instrument. This is what they call a mouth bow. And this came about when the caveman used to sit around the campfire and pluck his bowstring. And eventually, over the eons, it was attached to hollow boxes and became guitars and violins and all the way up to pianos. So if you like stringed instrument, thank your local bow hunter. Anyway, I was inspired by an Indian folk singer by the name of Buffy St. Marie that played one of these back in the 60s, and I always thought, well, I could make one of my own. And then out of my back pasture, I picked up this piece of sagebrush that looked like it might work, and it did. And this has been, almost 30 years ago. And it's still holding tension on I use a G string from a guitar, and I use a bass machine head to tune it with. And while I was putting this together, this song just kind of popped into my head because I do love living in sagebrush country. I want to live in sagebrush country, roasting cold and prickly pear. I want to live with old dog coyote, cockaburs in my hair, cockaburs in my hair. at a Comstock, sleeping in the rim rock all day long. Brown-haired rock truck running from the cattle truck. I don't find beanstalk where I belong. Big fat rattlesnake looking for a grub stake. Gonna do a double A, he sees me. Riding on a work bug, stepping on a steak bug. Shining in a brown jug, bouncing on my knees. Smelling like sheep dip, took a little side trip, going into Dietrich, drink a little beer, talking to the camp jack, don't bring a heart attack, hiding in the haystack, Everclear, grasshopper, fiddle dance, wood ticks in your pants, don't take a chance on a red ant pie, fiddle red antelope, grading on the sidewalk, greasy old smoke from the sagebrush fire. I wanna live in sagebrush country, blow snake hole and prickly pear. I wanna live in gold coyote, cockabirds in my hair, cockabirds in my hair, cockabirds in my hair, cockabirds in my hair. Sorry about that last line. I had my tongue over my tooth. I couldn't see what I was singing. All righty. Well, a great talent is with us this year at Lost in Lava. She comes up here from Texas. Are you ready, Kristyn? She's just a wonderful vocalist and a fantastic guitar player. There's no way I can play all the chords that she plays. She's really into the Western swing scene, and on top of that, she loves horses and loves the whole Western way of life. And it's just really fantastic to see somebody this young getting interested in what we do. Blah, 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 blah. Kristyn, you sing.
Yeah? Alright. Well, I ain't a cowboy poet and I'm not from Idaho, but glad to be on this session anyway. Let me ride down in Rocky Canyon, down a rickety, rockety road with the lazy old herd. Let me ride down in Rocky Canyon, where the wrinkled old creeks and shaggy old peaks seem to speak a friendly word. Sagebrush growing along the trail, cattle low in the moon is pale, coyotes howling a mournful wail out among the rocks and rails. Let me ride down in Rocky Canyon, down a funny old road on a band-tailed horse, took the load where the canyons cross in the crazy old western hills. You're the lady, you're the lady, you're the lady, you're the lady. Oh, sagebrush growing along the trail, cattle low in the moon is pale, coyotes howling a mournful wail out among the rocks and hills. Let me ride down in Rocky Canyon, down a funny old road on a man-tailed horse, took the load where the canyons cross in the crazy old western hills. You're the lady, you're the lady, you're the lady, you're the lady. That was my first yodel of the day. I don't know about y'all. He mentioned I love horses, and this is one of my favorite songs about horses. I like to do a lot of songs about them. I've got a couple horses at home, and this reminds me of Mustangs running free. Somewhere out on the prairie is the greatest cowboy there's ever been. And when he lays his hands upon the ponies, they shudder with an understanding skin. And he'd say, ponies, now ponies, don't you worry. I have not come to steal your fire away. I want to fly with you across the sunrise. Discover what begins each shining day. As the storm clouds in the west are quickly gathering, the ponies they run wild before it rains. You'll see their sleek, dark bodies brightly gleaming. Go, the fire is flowing through their veins. And he'd say, ponies, now ponies, don't you worry. No, I have not come to steal your fire away. I want to fly with you across the sunrise. Discover what begins each shining day. I want to fly. Discover what begins each shining day.
Isn't she a treasure now? Camper up here this year on the Snake River Plains. All right, one of the finest talents that's in Cowboy Poets of Idaho, and he's half of a duo called the Fall River Boys. But he stands quite well on his own as a poet, as harmonica player, musician, and comedian, and as well as just an all-around good guy. He makes his living handcrafting log homes, and he does this kind of stuff for fun. Would you welcome, please, Mark Seeley?
Yeah, it's pretty mean to have me follow a couple of Vietnamese, crusty old fart like me. Yeah, I am half the Fall River Boys. I started out as a poet about, 20 years or so ago, and ended up singing, and I don't know how it happened, it just did. But anyway, I'm going to tell you a story that my dad told me years ago, and I got a kick out of it, so I made it rhyme. I call it Friends. The stars were fading in the east. A north wind scrubbed the snow. The mercury dropped until it stopped at 28 below. A rancher donned his coat and hat. His morning chores can't wait. His breath was fog as he called his dog and headed for the gate. Well, that's when he saw this little bird, near frozen on a rail, too cold to fly and about to die, his wee heart soon to fail. Now this rancher wasn't heartless, but he had chores to do, so he passed on by. Then something caught his eye, a steaming pile of poo. Well, he had himself an idea. He picked up that little bird, then walked around and plopped it down, right in that fresh cow turd. Now the bird, he felt insulted at the deed this man had done. Heck, it made more sense to die on a fence than in a pile of dung. But then he noticed something. It was warm down in that pie. And though it smelled, the bird soon felt he wasn't going to die. In fact, it made him feel so good he broke out in a song. But that was his doing, because pretty soon the old cat came along. See, the cat had heard him singing, and, well, you know how cats like birds. He licked his lips and snatched him quick right out of his warm turd. Now, there's a moral to this story, and I've often found it true that folks that get you into stuff ain't always hurting you. But then again, on the other hand, them folks that helped you out ain't always your friend. And in the end, their actions sell you out. But there's one thing most important. Don't forget, no matter what, if you're chin deep, it's best to keep your tweeter tightly shut. Thank you. You know, it's been a long time since we've had cows, but when Thatch said something about pucky on the boots, I had to look, and I noticed I didn't brush them off after I fed this morning, but between me and my partner, I think we run about 15, 16 head of horses and mules, and one great big donkey. He's our stud. But I don't know why I thought of this, but some of my stuff just comes from an active imagination. And here a few years back, we were doing a lot of riding, and one morning it was just dreary. I mean, miserable, misty rain coming down and cold. And I got a line going in my head, and after I thought, you know, that's a pretty good line, I better remember that. And after about a month, I thought I better write it down so I didn't forget it. And I wrote that line down, and 20 minutes later I had the whole story, and I call it Cyrus Crow. They saddled up at daybreak, feeling grim and tired and old, and lit out on that bandit's trail before it got too cold. They hoped this time to catch him and finally bring him in, but deep down in their hearts they knew the chance was slim. For 7 months they trailed him, this man called Cyrus Crow, and wore out horses and fading hope was all they had to show. This Cyrus was a bad one. He'd killed 3 men for sure, and though they couldn't prove it, they knew that he'd killed 4. Cy had a love for money, he just didn't like to work. He was just 16 when he robbed a bank, killed his first bank clerk. Well, the sheriff rounded up a gang and lit out riding hard. They caught Cy quick and locked him up, but he escaped and killed a guard. Again, the sheriff rode out fast with his posse, proud and brave, but Cyrus laid an ambush, put a good man in his grave. Well, about then, the posse turned around and lit a shot for town. The sheriff knew he'd need some help to bring this bandit down. He sent a wire that same day, and he got a quick reply. 3 men, known as the agents, said they'd come catch young Cy. But that was 7 months ago, and they ain't caught him yet. It seems a day or 2 behind is as close as they can get. They thought they had him once when a lame horse slowed him down, but somehow Cy slipped by him and sneaked back into town. By the time the agents doubled back, a man was 6 foot deep. Somebody shot him and stole his horse while the townsfolk were asleep. Well, a month went by before the agents crossed Cy's trail again. 300 miles they chased him, just trying to bring him in. But Cyrus, he was slippery, and he got away each time and left them following empty tracks along his trail of crime. Well, the agents had all but given up on catching Cyrus Crow when they got an unexpected break from a man they didn't know. He came riding into camp one night, wild-eyed and full of fear. Said he'd just seen young Cyrus and he was camped quite near. They sat around the fire all night talking to that man. discussing different strategies and working out a plan. Then they saddled up at daybreak, feeling grim and tired and old, lit out on that bandit's trail before it got too cold. They found the spot where Cy camped. He'd skinned out riding fast, but the agents knew they'd had young Cyrus in their sights at last. They spurred their tired horses. This would finally be the day. Young Cy had raised hell far too long. It was time for him to pay. Well, the wore-out horses were blowing hard when they topped the rise, but then the agents pulled up short. They couldn't believe their eyes. Why, there was Cyrus down below. There'd been an awful wreck. His horse had stepped in a badger hole. Side fell and broke his neck. Now, a bandit knows his life might end on any given day. Cy knew that he'd be shot or hung if the agents had their way. But Cyrus, he was done in by a common badger hole. The agents took his body in, but the devil took his soul. Thank you.
Where else in the world do you find entertainment like this? You know, it's live, it's right here at your fingertips, and it's close, and it's the people that just live down the road that you didn't know do these kind of things, you know. And what I love about the cowboy poetry, the whole genre, is that it gives a chance for people like that to get some exposure and get on stage. It seems like the music and the entertainment industry in general is run by marketing analysts that only go by statistics and all that kind of stuff, and they promote who they want to. But in the cowboy poetry field, you are, you know, whatever your talent presents is what you see is what you get, and there's nothing better. This session is supposed to be about cowboy poets of Idaho. Before I realized that, I managed to get Thatch and Kristyn up here, which I'm really glad I did. But we've got another CPI member here who is really well renowned for his poetry, and that's Mr. Tommy Patton. I'd like Tommy to get up here and do a couple poems for us. I know he wasn't expecting this, but what's the world without a few surprises, huh?
I didn't know I was going to be up here. Well, anyway, you know, sometimes when you go do poetry, and people will come up afterwards and say, "Oh, let me tell you a story. I'll bet you could make a poem out of it." And every once in a while you can. And this was a poem that came about by a couple of people sharing their experience with me. And had a hard time coming up with a name for the poem. I thought about, it ain't easy being married to a cowboy, the trials of marriage, or Renee and the cow. Oh, I kind of settled on Renee and the cow. Why do cowboys always like to take their wives along? Well, so they'll have someone to blame when their low-grade scheme goes wrong. Now, Dean and Renee have been married nearly 50 years, and that's a long time. But not every day's been wonderful and sublime. It started routinely enough. Dean had some cows ready to load, but fate intervened and the plan began to erode. He had one old cow that's acting kind of silly, like she don't have much sense. She makes a mighty leap and easily clears the fence. Now, some days a cowboy needs help in his stress-filled life. So each soon returns with a trailer, a horse, and his sweet wife. Now, Dean charges after the cow, but like Rocky Patterson, he's not. And it takes several loops before he gets her caught. Now, all of his loops have been met with opposition, doing absolutely nothing to improve the cow's disposition. As he burns his fingers trying to dally, he can only hope that he gets her stopped before he runs out of 50 foot of rope. Dean gets her up to the trailer where she comes to a stall. While Renee's in the trailer to hand the rope back out, the cow wants in after all. Mission accomplished. He dives off his horse before it's too late, and stumbling and crawling is barely able to close the gate. Now, enclosed in an area 7 by 20 measured by the tape are Renee and the cow, and slim are the chances to escape. The old bovine's not acting like your grandma's milk cow. She seems to change species and charging like a biting sow. The old cow's having a tizzy, throwing a fit. She's shaking her head, blowing bad breath, froth, and spit. Now, flashbacks to her wedding day. Words like love, honor, and cherish. But now words come like danger, fear, and perish. Now, good old Dean's offering encouragement and helpful hints to his bride. Don't worry, honey, I'm taking all the chances, he hollers from outside. Poor Renee's going all out, not wanting to be a straggler, because the cow zeroed in on the W's on her regulars. When she gets to the overshot and sees a high wall, she jumps like Wonder Woman, wishing she was 10 feet tall. Now, poor old Renee's trying to get away like a bear in hibernation, but the cow is bent on continuing the confrontation. Renee's flopping around like a fish out of water. She has no weapons, not as much as a fly swatter. The cow has gone mad dog rabbit, trying to get up on the deck. These two are only inches from a spectacular wreck. Now, Dean gets up to the small side door as out she flew. He just caught her on the way down and said, it was the least I could do. So ladies, next time your hubby needs help with some old snide, just make sure that you're the one on the outside. Thank you. Let me see. This is a fairly new poem that I wrote. It's called "You Don't Miss Poor Help Till It's Gone." Oh, whether you're just talking or in a poem or a song, the old adage is true. You don't miss poor help till it's gone. Someone from the office staff that actually owns a horse, and she wants to be a buckarette, of course. She's come down to help bullers from the pen to be bred AI, but she don't know sick 'em from come back, but she wants to try. As she sits high on her horse on her padded seat, she has just one problem. She don't know which ones are in heat. But not all is lost, and she can get numbers on the in and buys. Plus she's not ugly and easy on the eyes. Another example. A couple of young men whose names are left out to protect the guilty, and there for a while it was the end of peace and tranquility. As I was out in the show ring, showing a young bull in the ring, they're supposed to be getting ready the next one in the string. Now, thinking they had a lot of time, they sat up in the bleachers and went to sleep. They're just sitting up there snoozing, counting sheep. When I came out expecting to see the bull ready to go in, he's still in his stall. Now, I wasn't thrilled, and that's not all. But being a professional with a lick and a promise, he went on in. And as I came out with the blue, the culprit showed up with a sheepish grin. Being mildly chastised, they went to work and the bull went back in. All's well that ends well, as the bull was named the champion. Now, this story is still told from Oregon to Utah. Another tale about poor help, if ever you saw. Have you ever had someone stand in front of the chute while you're straining and pushing some old cow brute? Is your helper dumb as a post without any sense? least the post can hold up the rest of the fence. Is it like losing two good men, having him in your crew? Seems like everybody else has twice as much to do. Did you think that alone you could get more done, and found out hand stacking bales needed more than one? Now, don't always feel good to get knocked flat on your back, because Nitwit let the heel rope go slack. Oops, there goes the sword at the gate at the inn and by, says Superstar watches a vapor trail across the sky. And now when I try to help my son, he's critical as he can be. But the part he likes best is I work for free. So whether you're just talking, or in a poem or a song, the old adage is true. You don't miss poor help till it's gone. Thank you.
Tommy Patton. There's a man that has more experience. He's done just about everything with a cow that you can possibly do over the years. All right, if you look at a map of Idaho, see, we're sort of isolated. At one time, people said that Idaho actually had three capitals. There was Boise, there was Salt Lake City, and Spokane. Because we've got this big, huge chunk of wilderness area right in the middle of the state that separates us, and so a lot of times we don't really know what's going on up in the northern part of the state. And if you look at a map of Idaho, it tapers out, and then there's this long rectangle that goes all the way up the Canadian border, and it's the Panhandle. And these guys here are CPI members and in good standing, and they're really helpful, and both of them are really good entertainers in their own right, but they're recently teamed up. And this is the first for me, because I have not heard J.D. Barber play bass before. And Dave Fulfs is renowned for his singing voice and guitar playing, and they've teamed themselves up, and they're now called the Panhandle Cowboys. Would you welcome, please, the Panhandle Cowboys?
Awful nice introduction there, Wayne.
Oh, I'm good at that. Are you plugged in? Yep. Okay, good. You're plugged in.
I'm about halfway up here.
You guys are way ahead of me.
Make sure that guy there's turned down. He's had 5 bass lessons.
We're having fun though.
Can you play way back?
My keys it in.
No, I mean way back. Thank you. You know, we don't do a lot of cover songs. They probably already muted you, buddy. And we don't do many cover songs, but I'm going to do some cover songs right now. Here we go. When all your loves have ended, when all your friends have flown, who'll be round to want you when all your loves have gone? Only a fool would do it after the way you've done. I'm short on power here. How many fools would love you? I'm the one. You never know, you might be lonely when all your loves are gone. Wouldn't hurt to have an extra fool on your list. After the party's over, you've had your fill of fun. You need a fool who loves you. I'm the one. You never know, you might be lonely when all your loves are gone. Wouldn't hurt to keep an extra fool on your list. And after your heart's been broken, you need a place to run. You need a fool who loves you. I'm the one. I'm the one. I'm the one. see if the song we have gotten up as loud as I can go with this guitar.
Yeah, I can't hear you. Oh, right.
They muted me. I don't know. They got something up here?
Make sure he's plugged in.
Thank you. Let's do Old Bob Wills tune. Let's see if you know stuff up with PGA. Faded Love. As I look at the letters that you wrote to me, it is you I am thinking of. As I read those lines that were so dear to me, I remember our faded love. Well, I'll miss you, darling, more and more every day. Like heaven would miss the stars above. With every heartbeat, I'll still think of you and remember our faded love. As I think of the past and all the pleasures we knew, as I watch fading of the dove. It was in the springtime you said goodbye. I remember our faded love. Well, I'll miss you, darling, more and more every day. Like heaven would miss the stars above. With every heartbeat, I'll still think of you and remember our faded love. Yes, remember our faded love.
Thank you.
Yeah. We'll be back in one. The songs know how to do it, okay?
Another hand for the Panhandle Cowboys. They really got a handle on their music, don't you think?
Yeah, we got some.
Well, we got time for just one more session before, or one more poem. So, Snowville was an albino bull. He was a legend in his time. His pink eyes glowed like cinders and his horns spread sharp and wide. He had a hide of pure white satin and it shined like Texas hail, all except for the brand on his left hip and a green patch under the tail. Now, old Snowville made his living on the circuit rodeo. He'd send them riders a-flying and the clowns running to and fro. If a rider drew old Snowville, you could bet your Wrangler shirt you either got a high point ride or a face full of blood and dirt. Now, old Rufus had rode his share of bulls before he become a clown, and underneath all that makeup, that cowboy's face was brown. The riders paid him tribute, none of them had put him down. They knew their lives was in his hands once they hit the ground. Now, Rufus and old Snowville, they'd done many a rodeo. The crowds had watched Snowville send that clown on many a barrel roll. They respected one another. It was more like play than fight, and old Snowville, he got some extra grain behind the sheets at night. But it was in a place down south of here once when old Rufus, he was all alone. His mouth just dry as cotton one hot old afternoon. He walked into the nearest bar. All he wanted was one cold beer. But the bouncer looks him up and down. He said, "Y'all can't drink in here." Well, Rufus got steamed up all right. He thought he'd paid his dues, and he left that place remembered why his people sang the blues. And being just a tad outnumbered, he left without a fight. He headed back to the rodeo grounds and he borrowed a truck that night. Now that honky-tonk was really jumping, had that hoorah, hee-haw sound. The band was on its second break, just a slugging that bourbon down. There was cards and dice and dancing, wild turkey, beer and gin, when the back door busted open and Snowville wandered in. History got made that night, and Snowville changed the rules, sent the bouncer to the ladies' room, and the barmaid wet her stool. Sent the pool table flying, wedged it up against the door, then he knocked the lights out with his horns when he jumped behind the bar. Snowville stomped and snorted, raking bottles off the shelves, with his foot stuck in his spittoon, keeping time with his brass bell. Had that barkeep's apron snagged across the horns above his eyes when he spun and chased a pool shark halfway across that dive. By then, the barroom floor was inches deep in beer and whiskey foam. Snowville stopped just long enough to have a little of his own. Pabst Blue Ribbon mixed with cords, vodka mixed with draft. He was heading for the bandstand. Through it all, he bucked and splashed. Well, a bass player tried to reach the door, but he had to dodge behind an amp as Snowville hooked the pedal steel and he wore it for a hat. The piano made a mournful honk when his tail struck a chord. He whirled, he charged that baby grand and turned it into boards. Then Snowville stopped abruptly and he made to paw the ground. He squared off with his jukebox. It was Ernest Tubbs' turn now. And the colored lights exploded as him and Nashville did collide and filled the air like falling rain with top 40 45s. Well, a bouncer, he was praying in the second toilet stall as Snowville charged the mirror outside and his head broke through the wall. Last thing that bouncer remembered, what he told the boys in blue, was this black man's face asking him, "Is he white enough for you?" Thanks so much. That's our 11 o'clock session. The next session will be starting shortly, and I sure appreciate Thatch, Elmer, Kristyn Harris, Mark Seeley, the Panhandle Cowboys, and Tommy Patton for sharing this with us. I'm Wayne Nelson, and we'll see you later.
It goes to break 12 minutes.